My son Jack is a toddler. His mom Annie has a complicated history, and this is what happened. Her husband passed away, and 3 months after that we slept together. We were barely friends at the time, so I didn't know until after our first night together that she'd recently become a widow. But she told me she was really lonely and just enjoyed that physical connection. So for about 8 months, that's how it was. We didn't see each other too often. Then we found out she was pregnant. She wanted to go through with the pregnancy, and I fully supported her if that was what she wanted. The thing is, she still had a lot of grief, and when my son was born, it was hard for her to connect with him. She said she felt guilty having a baby with another man after losing her husband. By the time Jack was 4 months, she hadn't gotten any better, and her mental health had deteriorated entirely. I took over with him full-time after this, since she wasn't in the best place to be a mother. Annie still visited a few days out of the week for a short period, but I did most of the childcare while she went to therapy. Then she was in the hospital for a while. She couldn't come over much during Global Issue except for video chats, so she's essentially become a stranger to him. 3 months ago, she started coming around more after not seeing him for a while. She's on antidepressants, and therapy's helped her a lot. Now she's more set on being a mom, and we're slowly reintroducing him to her. My sister hasn't been happy about this. I know she's upset on my behalf, as I struggled a bit as a single parent. She knows the situation with her, but still thinks she shouldn't be allowed back into Jack's life after abandoning him. And yeah, I get her feelings, but since Annie's in a better place mentally, then I want to give a shot at Jack having a mom around. I still have my guard up, obviously, and we've taken it one day at a time, but I see how different she is with him now. My sister hasn't stopped making comments, no matter how many times I've told her to knock it off. She dropped by unannounced when Annie was here and was very openly hostile, right in front of Jack. Annie offered to leave, and then my sister jokes, "Make sure you come back this time." I told her to leave and not come back until she could act right with the mother of my child. My sister is offended that I'm, quote, taking her side by kicking her out of my house since she's only angry on my behalf, and it was a joke she made. That's why she thinks I'm the idiot. For me, I was thinking I'd rather get her out ASAP before saying something else in front of my son. Was I an idiot? Look, not the idiot either way. It's your house and your kid. You get to make the rules, and you're thinking of your kid's best interest. Your sister being aggressive does not help the situation in any way. However, did you ever talk about any of this with your sister? Look, you don't owe any explanation to anyone. Still, if you were relying on her while Annie was gone and then just suddenly gave her the boot and dismissed her valid reservations about reintroducing Annie too soon, well, I would understand why she was salty. I wonder if you would have had the same hard time if, say, Annie had been battling cancer for the past 2 years and hadn't been an active part of Jack's life for that reason. Annie was sick. She was trying very hard by the sounds of it to get better, which she is now. Why would there ever be hard feelings about recovering from a severe and often deadly illness if it meant she couldn't be much in Jack's life at first? Not the idiot. Sister needs to cut that crap out, especially in front of your son and Annie. Annie doesn't need this kind of discouragement right now when she's trying to step up. Yeah, she failed before, but Jack is still young enough that she can turn this around with minimal damage to him. He needs to have his mom. Jack and Annie's bonding is something that your sister either needs to encourage or shut up about. It's none of her business. Update. Am I the idiot for making my sister leave my house after her joke about my son's mom leaving again? Appreciate all the words and advice. There have been some new changes regarding the situation with my sister and Annie, so I decided to leave an update. Many of you were right about my sister's negativity possibly affecting the relationship between Annie and Jack. It's also reassuring to know that we were making the right call here. The last thing I wanted was to make Annie feel bad for things out of her control. At first, when I talked to my sister, we got nowhere. I even brought up what some of you said here. Would she feel the same if Annie had been in the hospital, getting treatment for cancer or some other physical disease or illness? My sister claimed that's not the same thing, and we had to have a deeper conversation on why it is the same thing. Annie was not in the right place mentally to be a fit parent and decided to get help. There was no need for her hostility towards Annie now that she's gotten the treatment she needs, and we're taking steps to bring her back into Jack's life. My sister and I still don't see eye to eye, so that's when I made the decision that she wouldn't be allowed around us for a while and stuck with the same condition I made in my original post. We didn't talk for almost 2 months. Then I guess my sister finally realized I wasn't going to budge, so she agreed to be nicer to Annie and won't talk badly about her in front of Jack. I thought this meant things would turn around, but unfortunately it didn't end that way. Even after giving her a second chance, she still couldn't hold back from sending a message to Annie, letting her know she's only doing this for me, but she will never be okay with her. She called her a terrible mother, among other things. She counted on Annie not to show me this, since it would, quote, cost her son his aunt, as it said in her message. Oh yeah, I was angry. Another talk with her later, I decided she's not having any contact with us at all. As much as it pains me, I can't have that kind of negativity around my son or his mother. Their relationship has been rebuilding nicely, and this is a crucial time for all of us. We don't need the extra drama. On a positive note, Jack has warmed up to his mom, and it's a beautiful sight to see. I'm happy Annie is getting somewhere with him, and they seem to be getting closer every day. So not all bad news, right? Thanks again for the help. You guys helped ease my mind with this situation. At least I don't feel like an idiot anymore for making the right choice. I'm so sorry your sister doesn't take mental health seriously, but this is a lovely update to see that Annie is getting better and can have a healthy relationship with Jack. I'm sure knowing that you are supporting her is incredibly helpful for both her and Jack. No matter how things go with his mom, it sounds like you are putting your son's happiness and safety first. You're doing an amazing job. Jack needs his mom more than he needs his aunt, especially if his aunt brings nothing but negativity to his life. You made a really fantastic point about mental illness. So many wouldn't bat an eye if Annie were getting treated for cancer or had another chronic health condition. But when it comes to mental illness, society at large is still very judgmental. Things are getting better, but we still have a long way to go, given your sister's attitude. My 30 male, ex-fiance, 28 female, and I have a toddler son together. We broke off our engagement just over a year ago and have a 50-50 custody split. We split time with our son every 2 weeks, as my ex moved over an hour away, and making the drive every week was too much. Since switching to the 2-week schedule, it has been better for everyone. I just started dating again a few months ago, and I've been seeing someone quite regularly for about 6 weeks now. This past weekend, we had a date scheduled for Saturday night at a nice restaurant and tickets to go see a show. It was supposed to be our first nice dress-up date, as our previous times together have been more informal, like coffee, walks in the park, bowling, etc. Early Saturday morning, my ex calls me. She's frantic and tells me she needs to come get our son because she's having a family emergency. Apparently, her sister was in a car accident, and she's in a hospital a few hours away. My ex wants to go immediately, as it seems pretty serious, but she doesn't want to haul our son with. I agree right away and get to my ex's place as soon as I can. When I get home with my son, I contact my date and let her know that an emergency came up and I now have my son. I apologize and tell her I probably have to cancel our date. She says she understands, but asks if I would consider hiring a babysitter, and she has a friend who is a nanny and she might be available. She says we can skip dinner and just go to the show, so that my son will be almost asleep by the time I would have to leave. I think it's a pretty good idea, so she says she'll reach out to her friend. Her friend was free and agreed to babysit, so I get her contact info and talk over the plan with her. By the time she arrives at my place, my son is already asleep, and I have just enough time to meet my date at the show. I put my phone on silent for the show, and when I checked it after the show ended, my ex had called a few times and left a bunch of texts. I excused myself to call her. She immediately flipped out on me for not answering, and it made her think something terrible had happened, especially with her mindset with her sister's accident. I told her that our son was at home asleep with a babysitter, as I was out on a date. This made her flip out even more, and she told me that if she knew I was going to pawn our son off on a babysitter, so I could go on a date, she would have never called me to get him. She said this is a huge breach of trust, and it makes her seriously question my judgment. I told her our son was fine and tried to ask about her sister, but she told me not to try and change the subject. She called me an idiot and told me she would be coming to get our son as soon as she can. The whole thing pretty much ruined my evening. My ex got our son yesterday afternoon and we fought about it. I don't think I did anything wrong, but she sure does. No, you are the idiot. This was a stranger to your son. Your son should really meet a babysitter before being left alone with them, and needs to be told that you would be popping out for a bit, but the babysitter would be there. You left him there with someone who, if he had woken up, would be a total stranger. You were lucky the kid slept through. Not the idiot. You are allowed to get a babysitter for your child, and you don't need to let them know every single time you do. They were already upset, then got even more upset that you were on a date. I guarantee that if you would have said you couldn't come get your child because you had a date that night, they would have flipped out even more. You are the idiot. You didn't even know the sitter you left your child with. And what if the baby would have woken up with a stranger there? I'm sorry, but it was a family emergency. You could have rescheduled your date. I understand work or something important, but a date? Nope. Also, if a girl you're dating can't understand rescheduling a date because you're a father and that comes first, you might want to reconsider dating that woman. The girl did agree to skip dinner and just attend the show, which they probably had already bought tickets to. Not everyone can easily afford to lose money, as tickets can be quite expensive. Plus, she did arrange a babysitter for his kid. I say she's okay. OP is not the idiot. Your child was cared for, and you're not obligated to be readily available to provide emotional support for your ex. Last Sunday was my 24 female, husband's 26, sister's wedding. My sister-in-law, 33, had been planning her wedding for about a year and was very excited about it. My sister-in-law was almost 5 months pregnant, unplanned, so she had to make a few concessions. These included things like not being able to serve the food she wanted, and most importantly, not wearing her ideal dress. She had spent thousands on her wedding and was extremely disappointed not to look how she wanted to. On the day of the wedding, everything was going great. The whole venue looked stunning, and it was a beautiful day. I should probably add that my husband and I both make 6 figures and are child-free, so we could spend a bit of money on our appearance. This meant that I was wearing some nice jewelry and makeup, and I also had a tasteful yet expensive dress. My husband just wore a nice suit and tie. Anyway, after the ceremony ended, we went right to the reception, which again looked stunning. The food was delicious, even though the couple couldn't have most of their original menu. Both my sister-in-law and I were getting compliments about our appearances. Obviously, she got more than me, though. I also noticed my mother-in-law and sister-in-law giving me dirty looks throughout the day. Towards the end of the event, we were about to leave as we both had to get to work in the morning. We decided to say bye to sister-in-law and congratulate her on her fabulous wedding. We walked up to congratulate her, and she said, "I'm glad you liked it. After all, everyone enjoys being the star of the show." I asked her what she meant, and she said, "You couldn't have picked one day not to show off and hog all of the attention?" I calmly explained to her that I wasn't trying to steal attention from her, and that I was just trying to make myself look nice for her special day. Apparently, she disagreed with this because she shouted, "Why couldn't you have let me have one day where I could pretend that I was pretty? Would that have been so hard?" At this point, people were starting to get a bit freaked out and started to leave. I had been getting angry messages from my in-laws calling me an idiot, and I wondered if what I did was so wrong. Not the idiot. It's not your fault that she feels insecure. As long as you weren't wearing white, or whatever your culture's traditional wedding color is, or something inappropriately tight or revealing, then it's on her. What were you expected to do? Put a bag over your head or wear a burlap sack? It sounds as if she needs some help, or maybe the pregnancy hormones are getting to her. I should probably add that me and my husband both make 6 figures and are child-free, so we were able to spend a bit of money on our appearance. Why would you need to add that? As a couple that also does extremely well, we wouldn't have needed to add this part. It has zero bearing on the topic. That's a very odd thing to do, and it makes me think you'd come off a bit or a lot pretentious in real life. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you are the idiot. Something about how this is written makes me feel like you and your partner went a little too hard. The fact that your sister-in-law blew up and embarrassed herself publicly at her wedding makes me think you're not presenting this situation thoroughly or fairly. Regardless of your six-figure salaries, you should be dressing for the occasion, not splurging on your appearance and then tallying up who gets the most compliments. Your whole story makes you sound pretty obnoxious, honestly. I'm going with, you are the idiot. It sounds like your sister-in-law harbored some resentment and took it out on you without telling you. Your mother-in-law could have easily taken you aside and told you to remove some of your extra jewelry because your sister-in-law was feeling emotional and sad because she thought you were taking the spotlight. As long as your clothing and jewelry were wedding appropriate for the wedding you were at, you were not the idiot. My dad passed away, and since my brothers and I have all moved out, my mom needed someone to come back and help with things on the farm. My youngest brother's in his last year of university, and once he finishes, he's going to come back and stay with her. But until then, I opted to come back. I had to leave my wife since my wife wasn't willing to come, since she and my mother don't get along, and I wasn't willing to stay. As for work, I'm an electrician, and I asked if I could maybe take leave for 8 or so months, but they said no. So I quit. My wife was mad about that, but we would have enough savings to last. I found a job at a gas station here, though, and send checks home to my wife to help cover expenses, since she doesn't work. But now she babysits triplets that live up the street, so it's not necessary. I know that I'll probably be killed for not doing exactly what my wife wanted, but my mom asked me to help her, and after my dad passed away, I obviously couldn't just say no. It's only until my brother graduates and come home. After that, there's day-to-day physical labor that a huge majority of women, which my mother is, just aren't built to handle. So this was my only option. Edit to add, we have a 7-year-old daughter. You are the idiot. This is a trashy, flippant way to describe leaving your wife for 8 months. And, oh, quitting your job first? It's nice you want to help your mother, but you can't possibly think your wife should have no adverse reaction to this situation. Dude, you just can't abandon your kid and expect your wife and everyone else to be cool with this. Maybe your mother could stay closer to you for a while, but what you're doing is not going to work for your family. I'm trying to imagine my spouse coming home and telling me they've quit their job because they're moving out for 8 months. I'd be livid in her shoes, regardless of whether he was being selfish or not. OP, you quit your job, left your wife, left your child, and you're burning through savings. Your wife is right to have objections to that. This isn't a petty thing, like staying out late with friends. You've effectively ended your marriage instead of finding a more reasonable solution. Sorry, but you are the idiot. You quit your job. Why could you not hire somebody to help out on the farm? You cut your wife's support and income in half to help your mother, and have probably made it harder for you to find a job in your field where you work, because what you asked for short notice was unreasonable of your employer. You have put your mother above your wife and wonder why they don't get along? It sounds like somebody is a mama's boy. You also abandoned your child and disrupted her quality of life with your choice to quit a well-paying job that probably had insurance for 1/4 of the amount for your mother. Your mother is selfish, and so are you, and you're lucky your wife has not filed for divorce. Yet. He's like, I got a job. Yeah, like working at the gas station is making nearly as much as working as an electrician. He doesn't even care if they burn through their savings. What an unloving spouse. He doesn't care about his family at all. I was once in a similar situation to your wife, and by the time he got home, I'd already served the divorce papers and moved. You abandoned the woman, and you appear to think it's funny that she's upset.